I'd like to take you on a quick tour of the final project, beginning with the big picture, what this project is all about and why you're doing it, and then highlighting some of the key details and requirements that I'll be looking for when I evaluate your projects at the end of the semester. After that, we'll take a look at a few completed student projects from previous semesters so that you can see some examples of the variety of different approaches possible when it comes to creating a public-facing website about your local social issue. So all semester long, you've been researching and writing about your local social issues. You've explored your own connections to your issue in your flash memoir. You've looked into other people's stories of your issue via the profile. And now you're wrapping up your revisions to your persuasion effect projects, in which we asked you to in some way take a stand on your issue or make an argument about your issue and use persuasive strategies. So at the same time, you've also created at least 9 notebooks this semester, many of which likely touch on your local social issue in some way also. So all 3 of these major projects and your notebooks are what you want to consider the raw material or the content for your final project. And your job here is to revise, adapt, polish, and arrange all of this material into a standalone website that authentically engages with your local social issue and does so in a way that appeals to a local public audience of people who you feel need to learn about and become engaged with your issue. So in other words, the website itself is a container for the work that you've produced in this class this semester, but it's also designed to function like a real public project, one that uses the strategies of writing that we've practiced this semester to effectively promote change and awareness around your issue. So in this sense, your final project should be an attempt to bring to life that big idea about writing that we touched on all semester long, and it's this idea that writing is a form of action. Through writing, people respond and engage with problems and try to create change in the world. So these are the public-facing website guidelines, of course. You can find these in the modules section of Canvas. You should read over these instructions carefully a few times, clicking through all of the various different tabs and taking notes on the things that strike you as especially important to your project. Right now, I just want to highlight a couple of important aspects of your project that students sometimes tend to gloss over or miss, and then I'm going to go forward to show you a few student examples from the past. The first thing that I should highlight is right down here. It is the notebook section. This is the section that offers you some information about what you can do with your notebooks. The important thing to remember is that we're asking you to repurpose at least 3 of your notebooks. You can certainly repurpose more of your notebooks if they connect to your issue or apply or would make interesting components of your website, but at least 3 of your notebooks. And you can do this in a variety of different ways. You can make them a series of blog posts about your issue. You can create little mini features about your issue. You can incorporate 1 or 2 or 3 of your notebooks into an already existing piece. Ultimately, it doesn't even have to be clear from a reader's standpoint when they look at your website that this particular section was a notebook or that this thing was a notebook. What I'm going to be looking for you to do is incorporate them in so that they feel of a piece and naturally occurring within the ecosystem of your website and within the grand order that you've created for your site. Later on, when you write your final reflection for the class, you'll talk about where and how you use your notebooks. So it's not necessary to specify this is a notebook or that's a notebook when someone reads your website. Again, remember here that the goal is to create a website that appears and functions for all intents and purposes as a public-facing website. So any language that you might use that refers to this class or that calls something like a notebook or a persuasion effect project, that's language that makes perfect sense to us, having been through this class, but would make very little sense to a local public audience. So once again, all traces of this being a class project should be attempted to be removed. You can certainly talk about this class as a way of introducing why you're doing this research, but ultimately you have to reframe that for a public audience so that they know what you're talking about. Okay, the second part that I want to highlight is the technical details tab under this details of the parts of the assignment. And this is a tab you should read through carefully before you start your project because it's the tab that talks about how to go about initially creating your website. The important thing to remember here is that you can either duplicate your current English 2010 website, your Wix or your Weebly site, and use one of the features, use one of the features of duplication that each one of those different platforms has. Tutorials on doing that, duplicating your Wix site, duplicating your Weebly site, are right down here, linked at the bottom. If you like the template that you've been working with on your English 2010 website, you like the design, maybe you've already posted a project on a new page of that website, you can certainly continue to work with that website by duplicating it and making that into your public-facing website. Or you can start a brand new website, which is also completely free and very easy to do in both Wix and Weebly. The thing that I do not want you to do is to convert your current English 2010 website into your public-facing website for your final project. I want to preserve a record of your work as it was prior to moving on. So either duplicate it or start a brand new one, either one, it's up to you, but do not, I repeat, do not convert your existing current English 2010 website into your public-facing website for this class. Okay. This week's reading and viewing, which is where I am right now, features a bunch of different resources that you can look through for inspiration and ideas for your final project. One of the links on this page directs you to the gallery of student projects, and that's right here. If you click here, it'll take you here to the gallery of student projects. There's a link on our homepage that gets you here as well. Click over here to publication, and you'll see a variety of different previous student projects. Now, one thing that's important to remember is that we used to frame this project as a magazine. It's no longer designated as a magazine, but as you look through some of these examples, you might see them refer to themselves as this is a digital magazine about this issue. That was just another metaphor or another way of framing or contextualizing this assignment. We decided last year that we would move over to talking about this project as a public-facing website because it felt like a more accurate description of what in fact you are creating. So just bear that in mind as you look through these examples on your own and as I share a couple of these examples with you. All right, so here's a previous student's project. This student was looking at issues surrounding transportation and commuting along the Wasatch Front and in Salt Lake County. They've got a homepage that has a series of images on it, which I think works fairly well. Had I been working with the student, this is another instructor student, I might have suggested that at least some text on this homepage would have been useful, something to give some context, something to set up the issue a little bit further. But they've got their link to their editor's note right here. That is fairly clear as well and upfront. We haven't asked you for specifically an editor's note, we've asked you for a mission statement instead. Same difference. The mission statement frames, contextualizes, and talks about your project. Here they've got an image of themselves, which is optional, and they've got a description of the various different work that goes into their project. You can read through that on their own. They've got a drop-down menu for their various different pieces here, and I think that works really nicely to organize their content. I think if I click on the contents page, they've also created a separate contents page. So this top menu link is a page in and of itself that they've created little icons to also get to their pieces. That double approach to getting you to their pieces I think can be an effective one. It's certainly not required, but I think it works nicely here. If we come over here and look at their profile as an example of a piece, notice that this looks like published material. It's not just text pasted on the page. They've got images wrapped around text. They've got key text that's been highlighted in this big blue font. And they've polished this work and they've crafted it to make it look to look published. It looks like here, Road Tunes, maybe I'll just click on this one, is a good example of someone repurposing one of their notebooks. If you did the notebook where you created a playlist around your issue, including that on a separate page. But again, notice here that there's no mention that this is a notebook for my class. This is an additional mini feature that is helping to sort of explore their particular issue for the class. They've got a resources section right here that connects people up with organizations and resources connected to their issue. And this would be a good idea for your project as well. Let's take a look at another one real quick. This student was focused on teen suicide. Interesting project. They've got a Meet the Editor section right here. that offers up some interesting material about their project. Again, this is analogous to your mission statement, which is the new name of this requirement on your project. They've created titles for their different pieces that are fitting with their particular approach. So again, it's not persuasion effect, narrative effect, or profile. They've given new names to their various different pieces that fit in with the issue and that are issue focused. So it looks like here they've worked on a video. They've embedded a YouTube video, which is fairly easy to do. One thing to remember is that uploading a video to Wix and Weebly directly is not going to work for this project unless you want to pay them money. And we don't want to pay those folks money. What we want to do is instead upload your video to free to YouTube and then use the embed feature to embed your video directly on a page of your Wix and Weebly site. Here we got some YouTube suggestions that are indicative of my interests, not yours. Gardening and sourdough bread baking. Very, very popular these days. And composting. Anyway, guys, so they've got their video embedded here. The one thing that I would say is, though, they don't have any text introducing their video. I have no idea what I'm about to see except it's a video of teen suicide. So again, had this been one of my students, I would have suggested to them, give us a paragraph of text at the top. Let us know what we're about to see. Maybe include some resources down below. But the video itself looks good here. Let's look at one of their text-based pieces. Again, nice interspersing of images, videos, various different forms of text. Note the full line break in between paragraphs, which is really, really good for digital reading. And note the variety of different approaches they've used to text in this piece, just to nicely call out some of the various different sections that they're working on. Again, this looks like polished, published work, not something that hasn't yet been brought through the ringer and designed with a desire and an intention to reach its audience. Okay. This is their profile. Again, nice work. Note the hyperlink to one of the sources here. I would have suggested that this student do that throughout, although it looks like they've also used parenthetical citations. My suggestion is that you use hyperlinks throughout the entire project to link to your various different digital sources. If you create a hyperlink to a digital source, you've basically covered your bases for in-text citations, and then you should probably include some kind of a citation section at the very bottom of each piece, or like this student did, or you can create a separate citations or resources page on a new page of your site. Okay, we'll just take a look at one more. This student was studying the stigma in the Polynesian community around issues surrounding mental health and mental illness. Note that they have like one of these kind of menus over here that opens and closes, so you can get to all of their pieces that way. They have also got their mission statement here underneath their piece, which I think reads really nicely formatted. Pretty simple here, but I think it works fairly well. Let's see here. Let's look at their profile. There's a profile. Nice captions underneath their images that they're including here. Just a general approach. Note that formatting wise, there's really no need to have these indentations if you're going to create a full line break in between paragraphs. That sounds like a minor thing, but I think it works towards a sense of cleanliness and readability to make those line breaks look like that. Okay. You can look through some of the other examples on this page if you'd like to look. One scavenger hunt that you can do is to try to look for places where students have repurposed or adapted their notebooks to fit in. Some places you may be able to find, other places you may not see where students have done it, and I think that that's fine as well and something to keep in mind for your project. How seamlessly can you intersperse your notebooks? It's really up to you. One of the things that I like about each one of these pieces, each one of these websites, however, is that it's easy for me to navigate between the various different sections. Even if I have to come over here and choose these various different sections, it's easy for me to get around. There are a variety of different pieces here and links here. Each one of their articles is on a separate page, and I think that's important to remember as well, that they haven't just like taken their persuasion effect project and their memoir and their profile and bunched them all together. on a single page, but they've created the need for readers to click through, and that sort of organizational structure, each one slightly different than the others, creates a sense of a robust and full website dedicated to this particular